hosting our conversation today and to have our special guest, Gemma, who I'll introduce in just a few minutes. But it's really lovely to be here all together and to reconnect with this moment, with ourselves and with each other. And that's really what we'll just spend the next hour doing is just finding ourselves here in this space, reconnecting with the breath, with the moment. We'll do some tiny practices, and I'll turn it over to Gemma, who I'm very excited to have here. And yeah, maybe we just do a little tiny practice to get started. So we know that people are still kind of rolling in, and that's fine. We'll just make space. And as I often say that when we come into this to this circle, it's kind of like we're coming into a room together, a global room, but coming into, if we were in a physical space, we'd be pulling up a chair, making room for someone as they come in, and just kind of seeing each other, greeting each other with a little hello. So just a little warming hello for ourselves, a warm welcome to each other, and just pulling up a seat and come sit down and yeah, we'll just enjoy this time together. So wherever you are, you can just take a deep breath and relax. Just notice for a moment as you take a deep breath, what it feels like to have the air come into the body, what it feels like to just begin to notice the breath. Often we're kind of running over here, running over there, taking care of things, and not necessarily connecting back in with ourselves. So just for a moment, connecting in with what does it feel like to be me today? What does it feel like to take a breath in this body today? And if you'd like, you can close your eyes and just begin to feel the feet on the ground. And just noticing any sensation, if there's any feeling in the body, anything cold or warm, or even noticing anything that you can't really feel right now, anything that feels a little numb, and just welcoming anything that is here, any sensation or non-sensation. And if there are any thoughts or feelings, just noticing them as they come up and welcoming them. And if they are continuing on, just a kind of passing thought, just letting it go. And if there's anything lingering, just being with it and allowing it to be here, present with us. And just noticing for a moment what brought you here today. What brought you into click into this Zoom room, click into this connect around restoring balance and strengthening harmony. And perhaps this is just where you come when we when we send out the invite. And perhaps there's something deeper that brings you here today. Just letting that intention show up. And if you'd like to type into the chat a word or a phrase of what brought you here today, I'll share out a little bit. I know that some of us already shared where we're coming from today. So a lot of us are all across the United States, and we also have Portugal in the house. Welcome. New Jersey, Connecticut, California, and then we can just type in what brought you here. So just connecting in with what brought you here, and we can reconnect with the screen and with each other. Oh, and we have India. Welcome. It's getting late for you. Thank you for joining. Staying sane, connection, interesting subject matter. Yeah, I think restoring balance and strengthening harmony sound really wonderful, and I happen to um, connect with Gemma online in a way that was reading her article on the coaching circles on the third space. So felt very great. I feel very grateful for your work, Gemma, and the way that you've thought about how we can support each other. And I think it's just so wonderful to have you here. And I'll share a little bit more about Gemma as I turn it over to her now to lead the rest of our session today before we go into breakouts. But Gemma holds a PhD in complexity leadership from Clemson University and works with cross-disciplinary scientists to collaborate on compelling scientific and social challenges. She brings a special focus on polarity wisdom, including the use of key polarity indicators to support leadership development and team effectiveness. Rooted in both classical Chinese culture and Western systems theory, Gemma integrates polarity thinking into systems change work, helping teams and leaders recognize and navigate the tensions inherent in complex environments. She thrives in spaces where curiosity, care, and complexity meet. She's based in South Carolina and enjoys lakeside walks with her husband and pup when not facilitating coaching or writing. It's wonderful to have you here, Gemma, and I feel like all of those pieces of your bio and who you are, it's very much where we are. Curiosity, care, and complexity feel very much like what we explore in the Women Together space, and it's just so wonderful to have you here. And I turn it over to you for the next portion of our session.
Thank you, Antoinette, and thank you everyone for being here and sharing this space together. And Antoinette and I met. Antoinette, I've seen so many of you facilitating the U Lab thing. I was talking with Ella. I said when I showed my husband the announcement, and he saw your picture, and he said, "This lady looks familiar to me." And I said, "Wow, you've seen so many of her facilitating the U Lab event." Yeah, so great to connect at this place and where consciousness, care, complexity, leadership, and East and West come together. It's this beautiful place. Thank you all. So today we're talking about masculine and feminine polarity, and so like harmony, balance, integration. That's what we seek, and to put in the most simple term is when the masculine and the feminine are in love with each other, when they are in good relationship, and that's what we arrive at: integration, harmony, and balance, right? So this whole talk will just dig deeper into it. So I will start. The reason I chose this topic is because it is so relevant to me, so present to me, and it started this whole journey. Recent journey started with this call to adventure, and that work that came in June this year. And I was at the end of a very profound personal transformation experience that from a family constellation coaching that I will touch upon in a minute when I talk about the biography. But anyhow, I was at the end, and I was like, what's next? So, and that was when my coach, like I felt, because that family constellation experience felt me like I dealt with this long shadow that has cast over me from my parents' early passing before I was 10, right? So I'm growing up in the orphanage in China. So I felt like that shadow was dealt with. And then what is next? So that's what when this call for adventure came, is when my coach said, you've gone so far in life by being as good as a man. And he said, now going forward, the ticket is not to be even better than a man, but to be as grounded a woman as you can be. And he said, your masculine energy has been protecting your feminine energy. And now to enter the next chapter, your masculine energy needs to be of service to your feminine energy. I don't know if you all had the experience of something delivered to you where the truth of it landed on your body immediately, but your mind was like, what? What do you mean by that? What do you mean? So that was what happened to me. That was a truly call to adventure. I knew the truth and I got no idea like what this means for me. What does it mean to have my feminine energy lead my masculine energy? So that was what this whole adventure about that I'm reporting out, sharing out with you. So to start, we just want to clarify, like what this masculine and feminine is, right? So there is that biological, right? So there's the man and the woman, the different sexes, the biological. Then there is the gender that is more socially constructed. And then there is the energy, energetic, right? And that is the energy, masculine, feminine is what we are talking about today. And that energy is accessible to both a male gender or female gender, male sex or male or female sex, right? So the best I can explain this is from this book, The Ravaged Bridegroom. So Marion Woodman is a Jungian psychologist, and she has a serious book about masculine and feminine energy that is really good. I really recommend this particular quote from like this book in the middle talking about the ravaged bridegroom. So she said, critical to discussion of the conscious feminine is the liberation of the word from its bondage to the gender. While I'm deeply concerned with forging a new relationship between the sexes, I'm more immediately concerned with the inner basis of that new relationship through the coming together of masculine and feminine within the individuals of either sex. Mature men and women of the new age will be bound together less by the attraction of opposites than by their shared humanity. So, a unity that far transcends the sexual attraction of opposites. Right? So to put on similar term, you know how sometimes we say is like I'm incomplete until I find my better half, right? So, but in this context, is each one of us is complete with both masculine and feminine energy. And when two people come together, it is a synergy. It's a synergy between the two complete beings that we're looking at, right? So instead of finding the other half to complete ourselves. So that is the conversation that we are having at the energetic level. Okay. So to start, so that was the call to adventure. Like I got no idea where it's leading me, but however, what I can do is look into the biography of the masculine feminine is where have I been that led me to this point, right? So in coaching, that's something I do quite often with my clients is when we talk about apolarity, is that what is the biography? What is the story of this polarity that has been in your life? So here is where what I'll share with you my biography that I have written in on the Medium that Ella can post in the chat. You are to look more into, and during the breakout, we will invite you to think about your biography with this polarity. Okay, so the first that came to me is unexamined assumptions. And there are so many unexamined assumptions, just like in the air that we breathe, right? It's the world that we are born into, this patriarchal world with all its rules and orders. So when this came to me, this part of biography came to me, three things surfaced, right? So the first is appearance. So I remember, so I grew up in rural China, right? So like I remember like growing up, I had like beautiful long hair, lovingly tended to by my mother. And then the day I entered elementary school, the hair was cut short, right? So my mother said, this is gonna be long hair. It's gonna be distractive to you, right? So now you are going to school, so we don't want a long hair anymore. So that was right. That was like a very like indicator of how the feminine can become a bondage to you, right? And I was looking another day, like on movie review, and they were talking about like China was really like ideologically driven with the communists, right? So, and then like growing up, all the movies, like only the spies in the movie have like feminine characteristics, right? So they're dressed like women because they are the spies and they're up to bad things, right? So all the like revolutionary communist, like good women, they are all dressed like men, right? So just like how the appearance is portrayed in life. So I didn't have my hair long until like in my 20s when I came to the United States. I wore my hair long and then I cut it to donate to beautiful lengths for other women who need the hair and it's to honor my mother. And that was like a coming full circle moment for me. So now I still have my hair short. It's more for convenience than seeing it as a baggage I have to wear. Right? So that was like the appearance part of the unexamined assumption, right? What is the standard look? right? So that was one part. And a second thing that came to me is like what we study, right? So going to be like being going through the school system, I was always a top student. And in China, if you're top students, you study STEM, right? So I did not even think it was a joy for me when I entered high school to even choose a non-STEM, like a non-STEM major, a humanities major, until like really during high school, what I learned about myself is I'm so much more interested in the inner world, the human's inner world, and that is really more of a humanities major, right? So fortunately, I was able to receive the guidance I needed and changed into a literature major for my undergrad, which made all the difference that I will talk more about. Right, so that is the right STEM. If we think about like STEM versus humanity, STEM is more masculine and humanity is more feminine, right? So there's this hierarchy of what is better. So I'm not saying there's no space for women in STEM, right? It's about the alignment and how you make a choice that is authentic for the individual, right? So that's the second. And then the third that came to me when it comes to unexamined assumptions is achievement, right? So it's like I'm so how do you say internalized this like achievement path of more meaning, more money, more power, more status, more whatever, right? So like through the school, through the educational system. I remember when I graduated with a PhD, so I was like for a long while I was looking for my A. I was like, where did my A go? Right? So it's like so what is achievement? Right. So the other day, I was catching myself having this inner dialogue with myself, like feeling like this sense that I'm not doing enough, I'm not achieving enough. It's so prevalent, like to me all the time. So I'll beat up on myself. You're not doing enough, you're not achieving enough. And then there's this little voice that said, I just made a beautiful quinoa salad that is so like nutritious and delicious and beautiful looking, and that is absolutely achievement. Right? So that was how, like, when I examine the assumptions, I'm allowing more like different standards of what achievement is, like in more feminine definitions of achievement into this. So that was the first, the unexamined assumption. Like is on the left side because often it detracts the feminine, like the feminine energy in our personal life. So the second part of the biography was missing roles. So as I alluded to, both my parents had passed away by the time I was 10, and I grew up in an orphanage. So the missing role is the missing father role, right? So the orphanage I grew up here is nicknamed a village without fathers. So it was all the caregivers were women, right? So and just women role models were so easier to come by than male models. So this inner father role, so very sim it immediately when my coach said your masculine energy has been protecting, and that's what came to me is I have to have my inner masculine has to like step up to fill in that missing role, right? So when we think about system theory, when there are roles missing, different parts would have to chip in to play. So that was really, I would say, kind of like a personal, unique circumstance that contributed to the overdevelop a little bit of overbearing overdevelopment of my inner masculine. So I just remembering back in school, it's a common experience for like other children from the orphanage to be bullied, right? To be ridiculed, to be marginalized because you are low on the social standards, but that never happened to me, right? And my inner father made sure it never happened to me. So that was, this coming playing this missing role of the father role that contributed to the diminishing, the overbearing of a masculine energy and you know, the shrinking of the feminine energy. So and then on the right side is like what enhances my feminine energy. So one of them is a role models. Like I said, I've been so fortunate to have so many female role models. So I often jokingly say I have a crowdsourced mother energy in my life, right? That is so abundant. So in the article, I talk about my four mothers that I acknowledge in my doctoral dissertation. And they have been so instrumental in my life from my teens to my 20s. And that just continued, just amazing women role models in my current life. It's like abundant, right? To see how this balance and this harmony could play out in an individual's life, right? So the role models. And then the classical Chinese culture, that has really been my saving grace. Since I was 18 years old, I was introduced to it. And that was, I often say, that was how I reconstructed after this earthquake of losing my parents, right? Reconstructed my inner world of how I relate to the world, how I relate to people, how I view myself. It's really based on the classical Chinese culture. And that was another thing my coach said when he brought me on this adventure. He said, the divine feminine is so present in classical Chinese culture, right? And that is true, true in a lot of the indigenous cultures. So sometimes I just jokingly say that Chinese is also indigenous. It's just never called that way because China was never fully colonized, right? So like sometimes you just call original human wisdom, before the Industrial Revolution, the divine feminine is so prevalent, right? So the respect for intuition, taking nature as your teacher, and the more nonlinear thinking. So that is very, very much a strengthening of my feminine, of more the feminine, and then the arts. So like I said, I shifted track when I went to college, and I studied English language and literature in Shanghai. And the study itself was so good for me, so strengthening of what I needed, and the environment. So like in Chinese culture, we talk a lot like with natural elements, with elements in nature to say, the feminine and the masculine. So one pair is the mountain and the water, right? So the mountain is more masculine and the water is more feminine. So where I'm from in the northeast part of China, there's so many mountains. It's so strengthening the masculine energy. And then in Shanghai, there's so much water, right? So, I mean, actually, the word Shanghai, what it means is where the Changjiang River, the biggest river in China, the mother river of China, goes into the ocean, right? So there is so many water elements that is also really strengthening of the feminine energy. And then, the literature, the art, the performing, and I have just continued the gallery and really museums, continued to develop that area. My love of the arts, and that has really been like really strengthening of the feminine energy. And then the last piece in the biography is the work environment. Like Antoinette introduced, I currently work in science, and science is so linear and it's so masculine as it's practiced like in the environment I'm in, and then the bureaucracy, I work in higher education. I often say I'm squeezed in between two of the biggest bureaucracies. One is higher education, one the federal government, because all the scientists I work in, they are academic scientists receiving federal funding, right? So like so rational, so linear. And I often feel sometimes in order to show up to work, I have to like leave, like trim off some part of me so that I can show up like square and tidy for the environment, right? So the work environment is like is really like not welcoming of divine feminine, of the feminine energy. And that sounds like a complaint. And really immediately I recognize that there are small things we can do, right? I can do. So for example, since I've been on this adventure, to have a masculine served my feminine, right? So a new balance, a new integration for me. So one thing I've been doing is like it's kind of like what Antoinette did when we started this space, arrive in the body, right? So like embodied exercises, visualization, like appeal to the imagination, non-linear, and they have been actually received quite well. So that has really been an enhancement of my practice as a leadership professional. So this is kind of like a quick little story about the biography of my masculine feminine biography, right? So let me think that just brings me so much clarity. So that was one part of it. And then I also want to extend the conversation to beyond gendered traits, right? So each one of us, I mean, is incarnated in this body that has a limited has its experiences, but there are really more universal ways of practicing this masculine feminine in every single life experience, and this is how. So so what has really elevated this was earlier this year I got certified in a coaching method called key polarity indicators. So this is so we have a human KPI where you can take a leadership assessment and see where you land. So, but the point of its relevance here is all these six pairs, and there's one that is more masculine on the left side, and there's one that is more feminine on the right side, right? So between assuredness and openness is a polarity. So what is a polarity is they are opposing, they have opposing tendencies, right? So assuredness is going this way and openness is going this way and opposite way, and they're interdependent, right? So if you want to be successful, both are needed. So it's a dynamic tension that we need to navigate. And when we navigate them well, that is where balance and harmony is, right? Is in that dynamic tension when we're navigating that dynamic tension. So right, so in this assuredness is more masculine, openness is more feminine. Focus on self is more masculine, focus on others is more feminine. Hope is more masculine, reality is more feminine. Take seriously is more masculine, and hold lightly is more feminine. Right? Desire more is more masculine. Appreciate what is more feminine. Responsibility is more masculine. Forgiveness is more feminine. People often say, "How do you know?" Like, how do you know? I was like, you just feel into the energy. As I read them, you just feel into the energy, right? So I gave you a quick, a quick. So I mean, this is how in every, right? So it is operationalized in each one of these polarities. So I'll give you a quick example of this, how this balance looks for me. Take seriously, hold lightly. I lean way too much into take seriously, right? So everything is like you got to take seriously, right? So that is a very masculine expression of it, and that has a lot to do with like wanting to protect myself from the childhood wound, right? So the story I often tell myself is, look at how my extended family member, they took the responsibility of caregiving to my sister and me so lightly. And look at what happened to us, So we grew up in an orphanage and with all the trials and tribulations that came with it, right? Hence, I'm going to protect myself and the world from take hold lightly. So I'm going to really lean into take seriously. And of course, I mean, that has its benefits and its overuses, right? So when we talk about balance, it's nothing in excess, right? So when hold things too seriously, what happens? Well, burn out, I burn the people around us out, and I miss out the bigger opportunities, right? So to me, this adventure of rebalancing masculine and feminine can be concretely manifested in leaning more into hold lightly while maintaining the balance of maintaining the benefit of take seriously, right? So it is a both and. So right, so that is what every one of us can do. It's like, which polarity do you navigate with ease? Which polarity is at your growth edge? And how does that show up in your life? Go through each one of these polarity and find the opportunity to balance masculine and feminine. Right? So real quick, this is another set, leadership KPI, right? Action reflection. Again, the left side is more masculine, the right side is more feminine. And just pick the example of competence and warmth, right? So in my coaching, I have so many female leaders that they lean too much into warmth, right? Because that is how the female gender is socialized, right? So it's that you got to be warm, right? And they have difficulty when they step into bigger leadership roles, and they have difficulty in, leaning more into the competence, right? So that is a different balance story. Is about how the female how we can bring more masculine energy that can be better of service of the feminine energy, right? So the gist is there's abundant opportunity in our life to refine the balance depending on where your challenge is at. So, and then that brings us to the conversations. And so we can talk about in breakout, we can talk about what the biography look like and where is your learning edge. We can also look at, what are the opportunities in every polarity we encounter to find that balance and that harmony. So
Gemma, thank you so much. I feel like there's so much to dive in on and explore here, and I really love the way that you brought it through the masculine and feminine, but also exploring these various different polarities that we can look at in our own lives. And I think just thinking about where is my edge right now? Where am I really comfortable, and where is my edge? And maybe we just take that into our conversations here. And just, I know it's a lot to digest and a lot to kind of take in. So I invite a reminder that we don't know what the other person had for breakfast, let alone how they might be processing or digesting what Gemma just shared with us. And it's such a powerful body of work. So I invite you to Ella shared in the chat the the presentation that Gemma just shared with us. So you can take that into your conversation. I know for me, there's there's a navigation between those polarities that sometimes I need a little bit more of this one. Like sometimes I need a little bit more of just pulling in, focusing on myself so that I can right balance this constant need that I have to focus on others. So just knowing where you are, just taking a look, maybe even at that polarity chart that was shared with us, and just looking at where am I in this right now? And just noticing what's coming up. So we'll go into breakouts, we'll share our name, and this is really where the magic of this moment happens, is being able to take this connection that we're developing, or reconnecting with ourselves, and then connecting with each other. So just sharing your name, where you are today, and maybe where you are in this little polarity map moment today. And you can, if you'd like to focus specifically on the questions, maybe Ella can share the prompts in the chat, but it's in the PDF as well. So just thinking about the dynamic, how it's shown up in your life, or where your growth edge is, and that can be our focus. And we'll go in for about 15 minutes, or let's say, yeah, 15 minutes, and then we'll come back and we'll have some time to chat at the end here. So let's enjoy the time together, and we'll see you back here in about 15 minutes. Enjoy your time together.